Hello, everyone, and good morning, afternoon, evening for all of our listeners who have joined to another webinar, which is the last one of 2025. My name is Greta Papp. I'm the CEO of GDPR Register, an Estonian privacy startup. And today we are going to talk more about what companies should do to prepare for 2026. We keep privacy, but we'll also bring in another layer of fintech sector angle. And today I have a very lovely client of ours talking about her angle on the fintech sector and also her experience in the startup world. So today I have with me Diana Karan, who is the legal counsel from Salv, which is also another Estonian fintech startup, and helping companies fight financial fraud and make the world a safer place. Welcome, Diana.
Thank you very much. On such a good note, I'll pick it up. It's a pleasure to be here. Yeah.
And maybe, Diana, you can also introduce yourself, your background, what have you done until this day when we are talking here today?
Yeah. Well, in a nutshell, I've been in different sides of the table. Let's put it this way. I've been participating in investment rounds on the side of the investor. I've been working with startup Wise Guys for many years. They are an accelerator-backed fund, VC fund. And now I'm on the other side of the table, joined Scale Up in Estonia. They are a regtech, fintech startup. As Greta nicely put, helping the world to be a better place and fighting fraud. My interests range from data protection, investment law, commercial law, and intellectual property law. I've been part of legal due diligence processes, and I've been part of compliance frameworks. So I'm very interested to be part of today's discussion, and I hope I can give some value.
Lovely to have you here, and the ones who are joining a little bit longer along the way, the usual structure is we will have like a 1 hour webinar. Feel free to drop your questions in the chat. We will cover them a little bit later towards the end. Ask anything that comes to your mind. If you want a comment from Diana or something sparks your interests along the way. And as I mentioned in the beginning, today's topic is little bit towers like the fintech Prisma, how to prepare different legal counsels, compliance officers in fintech companies to prepare for the next year. And of course, as fintechs are supporting regulated entities, the responsibilities are high. The cost of error is very high. So it's always good to learn from others, share experiences. So that's why we have like a very engaging session, and that's why we really want our audience to be engaged in this process. So ask questions. So as Diana has like a very interesting background, I thought it would be a very big sin if I didn't ask her a little bit about the founders' side and how this early stage startups get going in compliance. because there are also a lot of early stage startups, legal counsels in the audience who are building up the function, finding their way how to make the team work. There's also a lot of different conflicting priorities, and what the management wants to do is scale growth, and how do you keep the compliance on this speed train, I would say. So that's like the first like section that I would like to pick Diana's brain on, and your expertise on advising startups. What do founders usually misunderstand from the beginning regarding compliance and privacy? What have you seen?
Mm-hmm. I mean, there are lots of operational misunderstandings, but I think I will structure my answer in different way. I will start from the scratch because having seen so many early stage founders from incubation programs, accelerator programs, I think the key dilemma is always how to find this good balance between compliance and innovation.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes founders do misunderstand that compliance, specifically privacy, is actually the architecture upon which you create value. It's, in other words, it's like the steel on the concrete that without it, you are creating a foundation that is cracked. And there is also this, oh, we're early stage policy, regulators don't really care about early stage startups, and they will definitely turn a blind eye on us. We had many GDPR workshops, for example, where after the workshop we asked what's the feedback, and they're like, wow, we're frightened, but we're not worried because we're early stage. But I mean, the commercial reality shows otherwise. If you check the fines that are issued by data protection authorities, they are not only issued for big tech or big corporations. You can see startups, scale-ups also falling under this radar. Spanish data protection authorities getting extremely stringent. Clearview AI, that was a big hit, and they are also a startup. They are not a big scale up. They were at that point only a few $1 million valued startup, but they got fined in Italy, Spain, UK. So there is this fallacy that they think, oh, we're early stage. Compliance is not really. It's something that we will do post hoc, and yeah.
You do it later. But do you think that the trend is changing now when regulations are getting like heftier, there's like conflicting obligations, and also the clients, if you want to find clients, make revenue, you have to prove that you are trustworthy. Do you think this is also shifting the obligation that we need to do more regarding compliance because the clients and the market is pushing for it?
I think there is a pressure from both the regulator side and the client side, because we live in the commercial reality when the trust is at lowest, and people by default expect that there are no privacy controls, and you can see increasingly the new generations have become more privacy conscious, and there is a pressure on the providers to be more compliant and provide transparency, explainability to their solutions. I think that's the other side of the angle. The regulator side is also putting quite a bit of a pressure. We can see, for example, the new AI Act, even though it's risk-based and differentiates between risk tiers, it's still a huge stringent compliance framework that the startups need to follow. I think in overall financial services, you don't only sell the product, you're also selling a trust. And trust is a big core asset in the startup. If you breach this trust, it's really hard to get back on feet.
Absolutely, and I think it's also like the question regarding like privacy, like pitfalls as well. That if you are offering services regarding like everything around like personal data and also like business data, which is crucial for them, and you have to like also demonstrate that we are trustworthy partners for you, and that then you actually need to be accountable, and you have to show something that you have done something regarding it, and it shows that this is important to you because we value your business and your business with your clients as well. And you mentioned this like trust, a trust aspect, and it's been more critical and more like a core element. Like how can companies switch that dynamic and into this, like but like compliance is not the blocker, it's enabler, it enables trust, like how to break or change that dynamic like either early or in the later years,
Mm-hmm.
like how to change people's minds and management's mind that this is important, we need to do it.
I think sometimes compliance framework can come across as overly complicated for early stage startups, and they catastrophize a lot. At least startups that I communicate with catastrophize heavily on what is actually compliance framework, how does it materialize in real world. And I think if you already engineer your architecture that supports privacy by design, security by design architecture, then you're almost halfway there. So the trust needs to be built from ground up. It's way cheaper, way easier to establish these controls from the beginning when there is just a product development roadmap, and they don't have the budget to integrate legal assessments or embed some privacy specialist in the design flow. But if the engineers and the leadership already have the narrative, have the mindset to create their product with the privacy by default and privacy by design principles in mind, then I think they will thank themselves in Series A or their next funding rounds, or when they get bigger clients, especially for fintech. Security is becoming not just optional, it's extremely important, with DORAs being in effect already for almost a year and enforced. So yeah.
Yeah, and especially when you have everyone has like a limited amount of like resources, like people, time, technology, and I think it's like what you mentioned really well is like take the complications and like make it simple and efficient, and it is doable. And I think the biggest misconception regarding like legal total, it's so complicated.
Yeah.
People will make it complicated. It's like you can actually make it like simple and very actionable, and everyone understands what needs to be done.
Yeah.
And it's like the perception and the culture that you build. And I think there is also like the shift that I'm seeing from the investors side as well, that investors want you to get your compliance basis in order. Like maybe you can share a little bit about that, like what exactly are they asking, like what's like the baseline. So early stage founders can already understand that if they want to fund and raise funds later on, there's no escape.
Yeah. I mean, it heavily depends on the stage of investment, on the type of market that they are, the vertical. But I think we call it minimum viable compliance. I think this is extremely important for investors nowadays, and there are non-negotiables already in investment around due diligences that don't end up in post-closing obligations, but are actually conditions precedent the closing of the round. These can be whether they have mapped their data flows, whether they know the lawful basis that they use, whether their architecture is based on data minimization, and they have security controls. Foundational hygiene like vendor governance, deletion processes, they come obviously later on, and investors are reasonable and they understand this, but there are non-negotiables that I've mentioned. These cannot be overlooked, let alone with the new AI compliance landscape that is coming our way. If the startup has AI, if the startup is an AI system, then no investor wants to inherit the liability. If their code is, if their algorithm is 99% accurate but 0% explainable, then this is a direct liability, and no investor wants to inherit this. Essentially, we had an interesting case in 2023 that was a shift for AI providers as well. The Schufa case from Germany, when the agency was credit scoring agency, they had an AI scoring system that gave the score to the bank, and the citizen ended up rejected their loan, and they asked like, what is the explanation how the AI reached this conclusion? And the Schufa said, well, this is our trade secret, or we didn't make the decision, the bank made the decision. But the European Court of Justice actually crystallized what we have been discussing, that transparency and explainability are not optional anymore, they are mandatory, and you're sharing the same liability with the deployers. So if you cannot explain how your system is reaching an output, then you share the same liability with the deployer. These sort of things, investors, I think, have become more risk averse, and they secretly like the new regulatory framework. Some may say that it's very stringent, it's not technology driven, whatnot, but I think some investors do secretly like it because it sets the bar high. The startups that don't have the governance maturity, operational resilience to comply with these minimum compliance requirements, then these ones just get weeded out.
Do you also see that regarding like privacy, like due diligence rounds regarding the privacy, that they asked about like this privacy audits? Is this trend like picking up, that they are also expecting, if you are an AI company, they expect you to hand over an AI audit as well?
I personally have only witnessed one similar case when the investor didn't necessarily ask like a data governance logs or audit logs or some red teaming logs, which is more like sophisticated, but more like they ask the founder, can you explain how your model is working? Have you done a crash test? Do you have technical documentation? And I realized that this is going to be a shift. Obviously, we are a little bit unclear on what will happen with AI regulatory landscape, especially after just like 2 weeks ago that the digital omnibus was proposed, and it's going back to fintech startups that were on the fence whether they're high risk or not. They might end up having more time as deadline to comply with AI Act. So yeah, it's a little bit unclear, but the trend is clear that investors have become more risk averse and they want to understand from technical documentation or from audit trails the explainability of the product.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also see that very interesting questions are coming in. I will definitely cover them in the end. So, and how to prepare, like, because like there is like a lot of like legal unknown next year as well with the digital omnibus, this like Fairness Act, with cybersecurity topics, and maybe there's something else is gonna pop up. So, like, how to prepare for the unknown? Like, what can you do?
Yeah, I think it again boils down to minimum viable compliance, and you don't necessarily the goal is not to be perfect. The goal is to be defensible, and to understand that you have to showcase and document every single compliance matter that you take into consideration and do within your organization, and be able to show it to the regulator. There are many pieces of legislation coming up for fintech. Just recently, the PSD3 and PCR regulation final text was finalized in the trialogue. So we can expect next year big changes for payment service providers. I think the key is to work as a team. If you have if you're a startup with just 10 people, then it's good to just differentiate the roles and to understand who has what obligation. It's even hard for lawyers and privacy specialists to keep up with the speed of the regulations. So I don't know how startups can keep up 100% and be on top of everything. And the key is to just do it in good faith and just do whatever is required minimum. When it comes to certain regulations like AI, I think the key is also to start classifying yourself and to understand if it's actually even applicable to you or not. And if it is applicable, and for fintech startups, it's hard to argue that it is not, because if they are credit scoring, risk assessment, and enhanced fraud prevention solutions, then they are high risk AI systems. So first key is to classify yourself and then to understand what type of obligations applying.
Absolutely. And regarding the fintech sector, what do you see is the biggest challenge at the moment? Is it the regulations, or is it something else, like dependability on the market, or?
There are. This question is really interesting. I will try to focus only one aspect. PSPs are becoming liable for fraud should they not fulfill their obligations to prevent fraud. And if customer reports fraud, then PSPs are inheriting the liability. This is a huge shift. And what this shift is bringing in the market is collaboration, rather than, in my opinion, it shouldn't bring crisis mode, but it should bring a collaboration mode. And there are already existing amazing solutions. For example, Salv Breach, that is offering industry-led decentralized data sharing networks that PSPs and financial institutions can participate to prevent fraud, because the liability is shifting from customer to PSPs. From Salv Breach, I think that was one of the key decision making for me, that I decided to join Salv, because they have a really good track record of already doing what is expecting in the future from PSPs, and especially in Estonia, our network facilitated for over 350 collaborative investigations and prevented around 6 million in fraud. And these data sharing frameworks are becoming increasingly good, not only in Europe but also in Canada. Recently, we did research, and they are also establishing data sharing framework for financial institutions to collaborate to prevent fraud. So I think this trend of liability shifting to PSPs and them inheriting these huge obligations to have fraud controls is good and bad, and it's up to the PSPs to decide. But I think it's at the end of it's good for overall good, because the more controls we have, the easier it is to prevent fraud.
And the world is definitely it is just like savings, like, but technology and law is always running behind what the fraudsters are doing, and we all see that the AI is a tool for good, but it can also be a tool for bad. It's like, what do you see from Salv? Like, how have criminals evolved with today's like advanced technology? Maybe you can share some insight what you see as the front line as well.
That's an interesting question. I think criminals themselves realize that majority of financial institutions have no instant collaboration tools. And when they shift from one financial institution to another, they know that it's easier to get away with what they're doing. But now, with the Salv breach already deployed in the market and working, we can see that instant collaboration, instant investigation between financial institutions is proving itself to be much more efficient, because then you don't allow someone who is causing a fraud in Swedbank, for example, to get away because they transferred the money already to LHV. When it comes to AI, I will struggle to say. I haven't really witnessed what AI can do to prevent this. It's, at the end of the day, it's really probably AI will work well for analytics and regrouping data, but at the end of the day, I think in such cases, human oversight is extremely important, both for the provider of the AI system and for deployer, because it's the automated decision can cause huge harm to the fundamental rights. I think in the future, at the moment, I'm struggling to answer how AI can solve this problem, but maybe in the future.
Absolutely. When I met your co-founder Tavgimi in London in the summer, we got to talk about like GDPR, and GDPR has always been like nobody loves regulations. And when we were in the business hub opening in the Estonian embassy in London, I always do this like check exercise, like please hands up, everyone who loves regulations. And Davi was one of the two people who raised his hand. So, and we got to talk a little bit more, and he said that like privacy compliance and GDPR compliance is a huge competitive advantage for Salv, because they are targeting regulated entities, and also a lot of them are in the UK. Maybe you want to elaborate on that as well. How is privacy compliance a competitive advantage for you?
I definitely agree with Davi that privacy is a core asset, and it's part of a moat for any startup. I think the narrative changed when financial institutions were obligated to audit the third-party vendor supply chain. Not just a simple commercial due diligence, but security and operational resilience because of DORA, and privacy because of GDPR, and because obligations create a different narrative. I think in Salv we changed this to as part of our principles. We are not just vendors; we become partners with whoever is using Salv, and the mindset that we share what is their obligation, we share, and we are aligned with this is changing and becoming more like a competitive advantage. I think not only privacy but also security matter is a huge advantage, not just for Salv but also for other fintechs. Maturity levels for ISO and SOC 2 startups are way different. And as I already mentioned in the earlier part of this conversation, I think fintechs not just sell products, they also sell trust. And if the financial institution doesn't have a trust in you, then it's really hard to justify your place in the market.
Absolutely. And fintechs especially, because it's like fighting the good fight. It's about how do you balance innovation, how to catch fraudsters, how to read the data with the laws and regulations and compliance. Like how, because you mentioned this innovation part in the beginning as well. Like how do you find innovation and balance between rules and what the company wants to do, and how do you achieve that balance?
I think because we work in teams, that's the first thing that comes to my mind. We see engineering team not just a separate standalone department and legal team as the department of no, but rather we work in the same workflow. Legal team is part of the product development flow from very early on. Our advice is more like how we can provide an innovative solution but still comply with the existing regulation, and it is possible. And I think Salv is one of the fintechs in the market that shows this. So I think the first and foremost, we work in teams and we provide helpful advice to each other.
And I think it's like really, really like healthy dynamic as well, because lawyers usually have a law background, and in order to understand what the technology is doing and how the product development cycles are, I think it's like this healthy change of information and learning from each other. And it's also a collaboration and cooperation, and how can this collaboration be effective, and how to start collaborating, because a lot of companies are working in silos, buckets, like nobody wants to talk to each other, they want to do their own work. So how to start collaborating and how to get this ball rolling? What advice would you give?
I do agree with you that lawyers are indoctrinated from law school to always be cautious and to make sure that the answer is by default no, and then justify why. But I think the beginning should be more about education and enlightening each other what is the risk. In Salv, we have many different types of trainings that we do for company-wide trainings, and these educational materials are really important because they showcase what are the risks. Because at the end of the day, we are a team that shares one goal, and we are also a team that can end up facing the same repercussions that come with risks. So if engineers want to create an AI system embedded in our product that has absolutely no assessment, no conformity assessment, nothing, then it is already not a good practice. So I think the education is very important. Not just from privacy mandatory GDPR training, but also AI literacy training or security trainings. These are very important. Yeah. But also, I mean, following policies, because the more the company grows voluntarily, compliance is not.
Yeah. Like one common misconception that I've heard from a lot of in-house legal counsels is like that they are not included or involved in like decision-making process, and then things hit the fan, then they come to you with the problem like, please fix it. Like, and the first reaction is like, where were you before? Why didn't you come earlier? Like, how to break that dynamic as well? Do you have like personal stories or successes that you have heard from others? Like, let's not wait until things go bad. Like, let's talk.
Yeah, well, the logic of GDPR and many other regulations is compliance from outset. So you cannot just deploy a product on the market if this product is likely to affect the rights of individuals, then there is a need for a DPIA from the ground up. You cannot do a DPI when it's already deployed. And yeah, I personally had good and bad experiences. Not being part of the team, but advising startups that came with a request that, hey, we have a problem, but they hadn't done anything previously. And unfortunately, we had to suspend that particular product development because it was a no from beginning. The good practice is when the engineers already themselves have in their team written or just known rule to always include legal team. And if they have a product developer, then product developers and lawyers, they also need to work very closely. How to create this type of culture is really hard to articulate. It's about both voluntarily, by education, by sharing experience, sharing associated risk, and by forcing by certain development policies, engineering policies, or legal team, always mentioning this in team calls. And yeah, I think the key actually always comes down to creating relationships within the company and educating rather than forcing through policies, at least from my experience.
Yeah, and I think one good like tip that I can give from my expertise is go visit them on the spot. Like most engineering and product teams have their like monthly planning meetings, yearly planning meetings, where they present the roadmap. They talk about the new projects that they want to prioritize. Go be and sit in these meetings. Go get information straight from the source. And then they also know that you are interested and they get to know you as a person. But because it's hard to include someone who is not visible. So they will not even know who you are, because it's like a lot of like people when they get to work in a company, it's like straight on, let's start doing work. It's like they don't take the time to introduce themselves, what their role is, do this roadshow, go visit all the departments, and people need to know you before they turn to you. So,
Yeah.
And a lot of people also say that a legal is or a legal counsel is a no person. I don't want to go to this person because they will say no, and then I can't do the thing I want to do. So it's like also the myth I constantly break, that legal people are for you, to help you achieve the company goals, not to work against it. Let's find
Absolutely.
it together.
I think from our side as well, not just engineers, but lawyers as well, they need to learn the language of the product. And if you're already an in-house in a technology company, then you need to learn the language of the product. And your legal advice should be agile, iterative, and backed into these sprint cycles. It shouldn't just be like a rubber stamp at the end of the whole roadmap, but more like a co-creation together with the engineering team.
Absolutely, and I think this is like like skill set for in-house lawyers is also shifting a little bit. It's more towards the services and the goods that you're providing, the technology around it,
Mhm.
and understanding the security aspects, the technical aspects, and I think it just it evolves in time, and that's the world we live in.
Yeah.
And that's why we have these webinars as well, to share different experiences and help people be more aware and develop these skill sets. And legal work is not just about the regulations, it's the work with people and the communication so around it.
Well,
So
thank you.
so when you would have to take your crystal ball out and predict something for the fintech founders for the coming year, what what advice would you give to the founders? Like what should they do or prepare for next year? Or
Mhm.
whatever.
Um, I wouldn't dwell much on the regulations because we already touched upon what sort of regulations to pay attention to. I would just say, actually, and this may sound pedestrian, but I would say map your data flows. And if you haven't already done it, I think it's extremely vital to start doing it. And these data flows, they need to be dynamic living map of how your data moves through your company, from entry point to storage to third party vendor involvement up to deletion. And if you do have a view of your data flow, you can adopt to any regulation that is thrown at you. I think that's the key. So build traceability into everything that you create. If you can govern your data, you can definitely innovate safely. And this is one simple piece of advice I would give to founders.
The foundation needs to be fixed first. Do you think this is like a common knowledge to them, like this baseline, or it's rather let's do something when we are in serious trouble and it needs to be fixed, and there
Yeah.
may be things that you can't fix then afterwards. So
Yeah. Well, when I speak to engineers, obviously the mindset has changed. A few years ago, it was more like, let's move fast, we will fix it later, let's get this VC funding going, let's put this as a post closing obligation, we will do it sometime when we have money. But with the new technologies, especially AI systems or AI, general purpose AI models, it's becoming quite hard if you haven't already traced your that data sets. In There is this huge clash of machine learning methodologies and GDPR data subject rights, and specifically right to be forgotten. how can you stay compliant with this? How can you, for example, erase a piece of data that your model has already been trained on if you haven't already traced it? And you don't have interpretability method embedded in your architecture. It's becoming increasingly hard to do it afterwards. So it has to be done early on.
And I think it draws down to this ultimate data problem that companies have. They don't have auditability. They don't know what happened with data. What's the cycle when
Yeah.
it came to us, like when it sent it to our vendors, like what's going to happen with that? And I think this is like a very, very crucial aspect. If you don't understand that in the beginning, it's really hard to start like turning the clock back and understanding that. And I've also seen like companies who have reached unicorn status, and like basically like 6 years after establishing the company, they start working on compliance 6 years later. And that also caused like a lot of issues like with the regulators, a lot of privacy proceedings all over Europe. You have to hire people, you have to hire external counsels, attorneys to get this going, and councils like all over Europe with specific legal knowledge on these like privacy laws or different sector laws. So it's like if they did like this minimum viable compliance in the beginning, we didn't have that kind of overhead like later on. And I think these cases are becoming like less of a standard and more of like an exception, because privacy, security, and AI is talked so much every day, and it's part of business and business risks.
I definitely agree. And just to complement what you said, I think founders need to also be aware of data hoarding. That is also a trend. Sometimes I see startups that have too many data points and too much data that they don't necessarily need, and they don't have any data deletion cycles, no data hygiene, to put it this way. So if you are minimalistic when it comes to data, then you're already winning.
Yeah, I had these like former colleagues who said that data can be the new like oil or sunshine, but it can also be nuclear waste. So it can turn out either way. So yeah, as we are like towards the end our webinar, I would like to cover the questions that we had in the chat as well. How did you manage to establish a process for recording the activities regarding GDPR and make other colleagues aware of the importance of compliance in early stages?
Well, GDPR itself already establishes staff training as a mandatory obligation for companies. And I think these trainings, they shouldn't be more like a legal lecture, they should be interactive training. In-house counsels, they need to change the narrative of we know everything and we are teaching you, more like, hey guys, we know that this is an obligation. How can we do it based on your knowledge, based on your technical knowledge? How can we, for example, do a data mapping internally so we can create a more sophisticated ROPA and have at least this part of the obligation managed. So I think it really boils down to creating good relationships with your team. Legal counsel shouldn't come across like law school lecturers, but more like part of the team who are just aware of the obligation and who are pushing it out there and asking for brainstorming. The training shouldn't be just like a monologue. It should be tested. It should be open for discussions, and yeah, it all comes down to human relationship.
True. So hopefully, Daniel, you got the answer for your question. And the question from Nicole is: to what extent is there an IP risk in agreeing to explain ability requirements? And with investors or potential investors, it's fine, but it seems that the requirement is extending to customer specific. Okay, there is like different like dynamics here as well. Like the IP risk and then like explainability to customers.
Well, if it's an AI system that is a GPAI model, then they have to anyway oblige with the baseline obligations that are to not have any proprietary information in their training model and comply with copyright law. We have many cases when the model itself carries IP liability because they cannot show whether they had the appropriate consent to train their models on this. But if I'm getting your question wrongly, let me know in the chat.
Yeah, and also regarding this like IP side, and this has always been like this when you are using like patented or copyrighted different solutions and machine learning technologies. It's like you always have to explain what your technology does in simple language to people who use your service, so they understand what it does. And I think the core aspect is like explain very simply, like what does the technology do? And I think like in order to do this, you can't find this balance that you explain and you do your duty regarding the regulations, but you don't expose like really detailed like business secrets.
Yeah.
It's finding the balance, and it's also like if you have to word it like, for example, for investors or for privacy notices, privacy policies, ask advice from your product and engineering teams. Like, how would you explain it? Like, because like, first they have to explain it to me in order I can put it into simple language, but tick over boxes. So, and then sometimes it's really hard to put it down just by your own brain, and maybe there is some nuance or something. So usually what I have done, I've asked like CTOs, like, how would you describe it to your grandma? Like, what does the technology do? And I will just review, does it make sense? And so on. So
Yeah.
because average people that needs to understand.
I think now I understand more clearly what Nicole was asking, and you might come across to investors who do agree that there is an IP risk, and they might also agree to sign appropriate NDAs. But at the end of the day, it all really comes down to what Greta mentioned. If you can just simply write what is the intended purpose and application limits of your system, then you're not really disclosing too much IP.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. And be wary of offering NDAs to investors. There is, not all investors are happy.
Yeah, and there are also like these examples when investors don't know what is your business secret and that you can't tell. You have to explain them like what it is, and sometimes you find this like very interesting secrets, business secrets in social media posts, but because investors are very, very happy for you and they want to share their like good news, and sometimes they disclose too much, like, and it's also educating your future investors, like what they can share and what they can't share. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, like these were very good questions. Thank you, Daniel, and also Nico. And maybe my final question, Diana, would be like, which I ask from all of webinar guests, like, what is this one key takeaway or message that you would like the webinar listeners and future listeners to take them with them from this session?
Mm-hmm. I think throughout the session we really tried to justify that privacy is an asset class. And I think my final message would still be that in the modern economy, privacy is indeed an asset class, and it's a measure of quality of your engineering, maturity of your governance, and also integrity of your brand. Because if you do claim that you're a compliant startup, it has to be not only just part of your brand, but also part of your engineering. So companies that embrace the truth, they will not just avoid fines, regulatory fines, but they will also get the highest valuations, deeper customer trust and loyalty, and they will endure all this regulatory storm that is coming up.
Absolutely. So thank you, Diana, for sharing your thoughts and coming here and from your very, very busy end of the year marathon that is happening in every startup currently to wrap up year. So big thanks.
Many thanks. Thank you, Grete, and thank you to everyone who participated. Have a great end of the year.
Yeah, so that's a wrap with this year's webinars. So feel free to tune in, rewatch all the sessions that we had throughout the years, and that's also helping us to make plans for next year. It will be definitely a very, very interesting year in privacy and compliance. And we will start the next webinar season in January. So stay tuned for more interesting people who will come and talk about privacy compliance, but also a little bit different topics that will be useful for our audience as well. Wishing everyone a lovely end of the year, happy holiday season approaching, and lots of celebratory events during the holidays, and stay healthy. So thank you all, and take care.
Take care.
Mhm.